Thanks for joining me today at Cedar Creek Homestead and for this week's coffee time. I have a cup of coffee here, so you see by the size of my coffee cup, this is going to be a long video. No, I'm just kidding today. On the 4th of July, I put up a video of the goings on here of our 4th of July party, but they had me a surprise birthday party. My wife and aunts and uncles and my sister and her husband, different ones that had gathered here, had planned me a surprise birthday party. My birthday is July 18th, so I turned 50 this year. So to celebrate, they had me a party, and they thought one way to do it by surprise, somehow they were able to keep me from finding out with all the social media and everybody that I see all the time. They were able to they were surprised me. One of my aunts got me this big old coffee cup, and anyway, today I thought for fun I'd drink out of it. We had a wonderful 4th of July celebration, popped some fireworks, had lots of food and fellowship, and just had a wonderful time. I hope you did too. I want to give a call out here to urgency, or I guess, or whatever you want to call it. But if you're watching and you have not subscribed, we are trying to grow subscribers, and it seems like it's hard to get off the ground. So if you haven't subscribed, if you would like to help us, if you like our video at all and would subscribe, we certainly would appreciate your help here on YouTube to try to grow our channel. If you can't stand what you're seeing and you think this is just dumb, you don't like none of our videos, whatever, that I understand, there's no need to subscribe. But if you think at all that you would, I try to help the other channels, especially the small channels that are trying to get to go. And in my opinion, anyone less than 10,000 subscribers is a small channel, and I certainly try to help them. And I help the big channels. These big ones out there that's got 100,000 or more. I subscribe to one that's got over 1 million. And it's because I like what he's got out there. But I've tried to help from the get-go several channels that I've been subscribed to for a long, long time, way before I ever started even thinking I would get into to YouTubing. But I thought, well, I'd like to get into that and do some videos and show what we have here. I love the homesteading life. And today my title would be, are you a homesteader or a prepper? And to me, a homesteader is kind of does prepping too, but without calling themselves a prepper. But there's some folks that are just preppers. Maybe they live in town, they can't grow a garden, they can't do all these things that we do out here in the country, so they're prepping. And what prepping is being prepared. And a homesteader has to be prepared. Now, I know some that might claim themselves to be homesteaders and they aren't prepared for nothing. They buy their groceries each week at the store, and they just buy enough cattle feed, enough chicken feed, whatever, just to get by. They live check to check. But I have lived this life as a lifestyle for years. Now, I went through some really rough financial times for a while, and I am not rich by no means now. I have to watch, but we've learned to budget our money. And at the same time, the past 10 or 12 years, we have, or maybe longer than that, maybe past 15 years, we have been slowly growing into the homesteading as a lifestyle. It's not just a movement, but it's a lifestyle to us. So no matter what you call yourself, if you're working at it and you enjoy what you're doing, there's some people that are prepping that don't grow a garden because they live in town, whatever, but they enjoy what they do, and they look for stuff that's on sale, and they'll buy up a little extra groceries. As you may know, water and food, that's your two biggest things. You got to have, of course, a roof over your head, but if you don't have water and if you don't have food, you're going to be in trouble. And one thing is, food prices over the past 10 or 12 years have really went up. I hardly ever go to the grocery store. My wife does all that, but when I do have to go, sometimes I'll look at something and I can't believe it's that kind of a price, that they're getting that kind of a price for that particular item. So things have really gone up. You know, right now they're saying that there's a possibility that pork could go up. So if you don't have some extra bacon or sausage you put back, and if you like pork and use pork, you might want to prep a little bit of pork back. Or if you're a homesteader, you may want to raise you a hog. I used to raise hogs, and I loved raising hogs. That was so much fun. I had a sow and a boar, and we'd raise little ones, and we just had a ball doing that. And right now, some of the channels that I watch on a regular basis. Oh, and by the way, I am subscribed to a whole bunch of channels that I hardly ever watch. And a bunch of them, I put the little bell, I mark that on their channel so I'm notified when they put up videos. And they just don't put up videos, or I would watch them more because I like what they got. But one thing I like is watching the little baby pigs, especially young pigs. But I even like the adult ones. We go to a fair. We haven't been in years. But used to, I'd always want to go to the hog barn and see the pigs there. And I just I love that. And but anyway, you might want to raise you a hog, or kind of think about that, because the hog prices, and I think they will, just looking at what things are, eventually are going to skyrocket, because China has a disease over there, I believe it's called swine flu, that they have, that they're killing off the hogs because they're getting this sickness, and it is growing. And I don't think China is being truthful about their amount of sickness that they have. So if that's the case, they're hurting for pork. That's their main meat in China, is pork, and they are a lot of people there that need to be fed. So they say that if we sold all of our pork in the United States to them, we couldn't supply enough pork to feed them. And so they, we have the tariff war right now going on, the trade war with China. Well, China got mad at Canada and has banned any kind of meat coming from Canada, from poultry, pork, beef, anything. So all of if the meats start being affected, if it does, then it could even affect beef prices. And I'm a beef farmer, so hey, that's all right. I wouldn't mind the price go up. The worst thing is people that I know have to pay more at the stores, and the stores always charge a whole lot more than what they're paying people like me. Even right now, the prices did not come down all that much when beef started dropping what I got paid compared to what they're selling in the store. They've kept it up very high at the store. But there's a competition between chicken and pork and beef. But if one of them starts to really go up, then the others start following in line. Also, there's a concern that there could be a shortage of corn and soybeans because all these fields were flooded. We had a lot of fields around here that they brush hogged the corn down because it was in water so long. I guess it stunts the growth or whatever. It was just young plants, and they've started over. They've already planted and got corn up already this high. So it's amazing what our farmers can do. But I seen one YouTuber channel that said that where they are, hay is going to get to be over $300 a bale. That is not here. Where we are right now, there's going to be an abundance of hay. They're baling hay everywhere. The problem is they're a little late cutting it. So, but if this rain continues, we got a ½ inch yesterday. We are 36, 37 inches of rain where I live out here in Oklahoma for the year, way, way above normal. And if we continue to get rains this summer, like we have been so far, the grass is going to keep growing. The problem is trying to get in and cut it. But they're cutting it right now around here. The people that bale hay are just going leaps and bounds. I know a guy that custom bales hay that went and bought a couple of new tractors and another baler so that he could have more than one crew going, or they can gather up and have 2 balers, 2 rakes, 2 mowing machines, everything going. And he's because he believes there's going to be so much hay to cut. And the hay around here brings around $30, $35 a bale for just regular grass hay. Now alfalfa and stuff like that's more. So not to get on a big thing with cattle, I have my cattle talk every Thursday at 7 o'clock p.m. If you'd like to watch my cattle talk video here, it airs on this channel on Cedar Creek Homestead at 7 o'clock every Thursday. And I talk about cattle, and we'll be discussing those things. But it doesn't appear to be any kind of shortage for hay. I have heard that some of the stores have ran out of canned vegetables like green beans and corn and some things like that. And some have said some of them have ran out of sugar. I think it's more of a logistics thing of how to get it there to the stores from what I understand. But still being prepared and being, having your stuff back. And as homesteaders, this lifestyle, my grandparents were homesteaders. one day I'm going to go over here and make a video of their place. My great-grandfather bought this piece of property that I own here now, and he gave it to my grandfather. My dad bought it from what he didn't inherit from his siblings, and now I have bought this place from my father. The original 60 acres here, homestead that they had, and we have bought a little bit more since, but the original 60-acre place is still intact here. And but I can take you over there one day. I'll do a little video and show you where the old smokehouse, there's still remnants of that, where the old house stood, and it was standing when I was born. Up until I was in high school, it was still, I guess when I graduated high school, it was still standing over there, the old home place and the way things were there. And so kind of a long story, but I was born July 18th, 1969, and my grandmother died 30 days before on June 18th of a heart attack. And back then they didn't know what they know now about heart and taking care of people, and she was having a heart attack, and they took her to the hospital, and she died there in Muskogee. Anyway, the neighbor lady across the road up here had a farm too, about the size of my grandfather's, and her name was Miss Moore, and she has passed on now as well, and my grandfather, all of them have passed on. But anyway, her husband had died about a month or 2 or 3 before my grandmother. So him and my grandpa, the mailbox was down there at the end of the lane, and my grandpa had walked down to get his mail, and he had come over talking to my grandfather, and they were talking about clover. He had planted clover out in his hayfield, crimson clover to have for hay. And he showed my grandfather that, and he bent over to get one, and when he did, Mr. Moore just fell over dead, they believe with a heart attack. So later, a few months later, my grandmother died, and Granny Ferguson, she passed away, and then my grandfather, he started dating this widow woman, Miss Moore, across the road, and they ended up getting married and lived out the remainder of their years over there. And my grandfather left the old home place. He kept it maintained, the yard mowed and stuff as much as he could, but he kept it up and going, and he stayed with Miss Moore over at her home. She had a bigger, fancier, nicer place than what my grandfather had, but nonetheless, they still homestead. They would butcher a hog, and they would cure the meat and salt cure it and stuff to preserve it. He had a little building out there, and the meat just laid up on shelves, and when they wanted to eat it, if a mouse had chewed on it and stuff, or if there was any mold, they just cut that part off. And I can remember Grandpa going out there and getting some pork out of the smokehouse. Sounds sickening, but that's the way they did it. And they canned the sausage in jars, in quart jars, and they put some of the fat on top, and they turned the jar upside down. And when they'd open up a jar of sausage, it was just like it had been freshly fried, and they would heat it up in a skillet. Of course, you didn't have microwave ovens way back when I was a little boy, so they would heat it up in a skillet, and that's how they ate their sausage. And so the bacons and stuff, they cured it with salt, which drew the blood out, and they smoked it in smokehouse, and they had ways of making it. They canned their own food, green beans, corn, whatever, and they could survive. They raised chickens. Chickens was a big thing around here. My grandmother on my mom's side was from New York State, and she's actually from Rome, Italy, and on my stepmom's side. But anyway, she come to New York City and met my step-grandpa, and they got married. When they come here to Oklahoma, my grandpa's step-grandpa's mother said, her name was Callie, she said, we're going to have chicken. And so she said, come go with me. They went outside, and she rang a couple of chickens' necks off, and they plucked the feathers off the chickens, and they had fried chicken that night. My grandmother, that was from New York, said that at that time you bought your chicken at town. You didn't raise it yourself. You just went to the market there in the city, and that's how you bought your chicken. So she was rather surprised at how folks lived here in Oklahoma. But that was a homesteading lifestyle. They'd just go out and kill them a couple of chickens. If they killed an old rooster, something that was tough, they made dumplings, boiled it, stewed it, something like that. If it was younger, then they fried it up. And my dad tells stories about him and his mom. My grandfather worked out a lot, and when they would want fried chicken, and said they might be a little younger than you would normally kill to fry, but that my grandma, my dad's mom, would say, well, them chickens are going to get something be catching them, so we ought to eat them. So my dad would go out and catch a chicken and butcher it, and him and his mom would have fried chicken that night. I had my great-grandmother on the Ferguson side. She lived in town, and she had a couple of lots, and she had a milk cow and chickens and a garden right there in the city limits in the little town we live at here. Her place now is commercialized, but back in the day when I was a boy, you would stay with her, and she'd go out and gather her eggs, and she had a old milk cow she'd milk in the morning and evening, and she done all that right there in town. Now they'd probably run them off today if they tried to do that, but back then that was normal. She had a homestead. Even though they had owned this land, they had moved into town for whatever reason, and lived there in town. Of course, town used to here was very, very small. Everything closed on Sunday. You couldn't even buy gas in the town here where we live at. Back when I was a boy, all the grocery stores, everything was closed, and you couldn't eat out or nothing. And we'd go to my great-grandmother's and gather there on Sundays usually and eat dinner. But anyway, things have changed a lot since back then. But I think the need to homestead and to prepare, whether you call yourself a homesteader or a prepper, and I actually believe a true homesteader kind of preps. They put canned goods back, they do things that way. But whatever you call yourself, I think the need for that today is even more than it's ever been. And the way our country is set up and all the transportation stuff has to travel from the west coast to get here, or from some foreign country to get here, and all that is very vulnerable. We could run out of things. Here a while back at the Super Bowl time, didn't even watch the Super Bowl, but I know they was hollering on the news that there was a lack of avocados. Well, whoopity-doo to me. I love guacamole, and avocado slices are okay, but I prefer it made into guacamole. But I can do without it. I don't think I could even grow avocados if I wanted to here on my homestead, but I could live without it. But there's some things I couldn't make it without, and so I want to be prepared for whatever comes or goes, and I know you do too. And I want to be able to feed folks, and also feed herself if you become destitute without food and water, but especially when I have a means to do it and can work at it. And so I do it as a lifestyle, and we enjoy it. If we didn't enjoy this, we probably wouldn't do it. But I enjoy, and I'm not talking about YouTube videos, I enjoy that also. But I've really been enjoying it here lately, putting out videos and doing what I'm doing. I'm just enjoying this, and I love watching other people's videos. It's hard in the summer because I get so busy. I have to wait till I come in about 9:30. When it gets dark, we come in the house, and then I'll have time to watch my videos, watch people's videos, and also I'll usually create a video real quickly. My video quality, as far as editing and all that, could use some work, but I just put together videos real quick, throw it out there, playing around with it. One thing is a lack of time, because it takes time on your homestead. But we love this. Instead of taking vacations and doing a lot of things that people go and do that are our age and friends of ours, a lot of them don't have anything. They don't have a garden, they don't have chickens, they don't have a dog. If they do, they take it to a local kennel, which is a place here in town now you can take your dog to, and they'll keep it for you while you're gone if you want to. But we have so much stuff here, we can't just up and leave. If we did leave, it might be for a day or two. My son would look after everything and stay here and watch stuff, and we have had him do that before when we were needing to be gone for a day or two, that he stays here. But I feel like nobody takes care of my stuff as good as I do. But anyway, this week's question is, are you a homesteader or a prepper? And if you have a comment about that, what you are, if you're watching the video, put your description down there, what you are. If you're a homesteader or a prepper or whatever. The only reason I wouldn't want to be called a prepper is they've kind of got a bad name. They've had that doomsday preppers and all that stuff. And I think the TV people take the worst that they can to make people look like freak shows, and they put it. I think they would do that about Homestead, and they would try to make you look like a goofball when people aren't. But they'll take clips to make you look worse because it's kind of like clickbait. They can get people to watch. And so but the homesteaders that I know, at least that I watch on YouTube, and the ones that I see here locally, we've got some folks that don't make YouTube videos around our park here, but they're homesteaders. And some might call themselves a homesteader slash prepper, but they raise their own food, they put stuff back and things, and some are doing it secretly. Some are visit about it a little bit and discuss it, but they don't want to be on television, they don't want to be on YouTube. But this has become a way of life with them, and they enjoy it, and I enjoy it also. Now, I show mostly all the good, but we have some bad happen. Today I lost a cow, and I hate that. She got anaplasm. I'll probably have a video on that. It's a disease shared by flies mostly here, and I hate that that's happened, but it's just a way of life and something that happens occasionally. But anyhow, I appreciate you watching, and I'm going to ask you once again, if you watch this video and you haven't subscribed, if you would subscribe to our channel, we would greatly appreciate it. In fact, I'd be honored if you subscribed, and every time I get a new subscription, it just really honors me to think that you think enough of us and liked our video enough that you would actually subscribe to our channel. And you know, we're just small potatoes here, but I would like to grow our channel, and would appreciate your, that just tells me that we're doing a good job and that you like us. But if you don't, I understand, or whatever. And commenting and giving us a thumbs up, they say on YouTube, really helps spread your channel. So if you would do that, well, we'd greatly appreciate it. And hey, we thank you for watching this week on Coffee Time here. My coffee, I'm sure I've talked long enough now. I only brought out a half a cup. It's still pretty warm there. So anyway, enjoying that coffee today, and going to be hot here. Appreciate what you're doing. God bless you. We'll see you next week here on Coffee Time at Cedar Creek Homestead. We're gone.